for a Shannon. What day is this? Wednesday?
It is Wednesday. It's the day after Groundhog Day, and you still have 6 weeks of me.
Not necessarily. The groundhog seeing or not seeing his shadow has no impact on the length of service that you will provide to this podcast. I
really?
have news for you.
Really?
Well, I mean, after what Bell did yesterday, anything is possible,
Come on, listen. We should just give our condolences to all those people and hopefully get new jobs.
We do, and the dilemma is trying to find one as everybody continues to pare down. But that's a subject for another day or another week or another month. Meanwhile, the Toronto Raptors came up with a victory last night, although they beat Orlando, which is a team. I think if only 2 players showed up, they could still beat Orlando. I don't know what the thing is. Now, mind you,
Orlando is the Ottawa Senators. Orlando, when
they
you have
sort
a bad
are.
team, when you're in a funk in the NHL, you play Ottawa. When you're in a funk in the NBA, you play Orlando.
But the big story, of course, last night was the performance by Freddy VanVleet. And joining us to talk a little bit about it, 2 guys who know a little bit about it, Paul Jones, Eric Smith, are both with us. I must say this. You guys do the games all the time, and I'm just a casual observer. Well, more than casual, but I'm an observer of it. Is it at all surprising that with the quality of players that the Raptors have had over the years, like Vince, like DeRozan, like Bosch, guys who could put the biscuit in the basket, that the highest total points was what, 52? Does that even surprise you, Jones, at all?
Is that not really? Because of the way they play, a guy has to get really hot like that for them to look for him. They play such a share the ball, preach team style that when a guy gets that level, like last night, after a while, they started to look for Fred. The Sunday that Donyell Marshall hit the 12 threes, he got hot and they started to look for him.
Hey, that's good coaching.
Really. I could do that, but there's part of me that's not surprised, Bob, just because it takes a guy to really get going and everybody else steps back. And then it's the nature of the guy too. Like some of those guys are not the kind that said, okay, I'm hot and I'm gonna shoot everything none of you guys are allowed to shoot. I mean, Fred last night was very responsible. I mean, he scored 54 points. He only took 23 shots. He made almost every 3-pointer he took. And that did not give him, in his mind, a license to say, well, shoot, man, I'm just going to keep shooting. He didn't do that. And I think it's the responsibility of the player and the type of guy that they have.
Well, we were talking earlier, E, about Kobe's 81. I think you brought it up. And, what sense did you get about, that night Kobe had?
Well, that's why I sat in the section of my home that has the little, the Kobe memorial here.
The Kobe section. Sure, he's in the Kobe section.
Yeah, the Kobe section of the Smith estate. Yes, indeed. Well, Jonesy and I have noted the story a number of times, Bobcat and John, and Jonesy when it was what?
Abbey Road.
He was at 50. We said he's going for 60, and when he was at 60, Jonesy said to me, he's going for 70. And I said to him, and we have the clip somewhere. I said, Jonesy, I think he's going for 80. And to watch it just unfold in front of you, and the story's been told so many times over the years, that LA needed every single one of those points because the Raptors were in the lead for a good chunk of that ball game. And it was one of those moments where, and it sounds so cliche, the basket looked like an ocean to Kobe. Everything was going in. He could not miss. He could not be stopped. And it was just, it did seem like he was hitting every single shot, and it was nothing could go wrong.
Bob, he told us a story, Kobe, 2 years later. The Raptors played a preseason game in Ontario, California, and we were covering the game. And he came out and told us, somebody asked him, is there anything you could have done? And Kobe gave them the brown turtleneck. He put his lip down. He went, no chance. They weren't stopping me. And as one time, Eric and I said in the game, it was like Abbey Road. The other 4 guys were walking up the court on the other side as Kobe dribbled the ball up the near side. And they were like, well, we'll just go down here and stand here and maybe rebound if you miss. You know, we'll be back on defense for you. But and that's the kind of guy he was. I don't think the Raptors have always had that type of personality on their team.
The best chance they would have had, to me, would have been Vince.
Vince,
yeah. To your point, Jones.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when DeMar's at the top of his game, he's got Lowry. It was Batman and Robin. Who is the 1A, the 1B? Who's the lead dog? Even in Bosch's years, as much as we don't speak his name much anymore, you had Bargnani, who was out there giving you 18, 20, 25 a night. And Bosch didn't necessarily have that personality either, or at that position to demand the ball and throw it into the post every time. And he hadn't yet developed that three-point shot that became more of a weapon later in his career. So the best guy, the guy that had the best chance maybe to be it, that 50, 55, 60-point guy was Vince. And as incredible as he was as a scorer, he only had a couple of those 50-point games. He only had a couple of those major moments. So I guess it's not a surprise that it ultimately took this long.
But you know, the night that he scored 50 in Toronto, a lot of that was inside.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
that and I mean, the difference of that was at that point in Carter's career was that's where he played so much.
Yep.
The thing about last night was there was, and this is VanVleet to me anyway. And I admit there were times early on, and I remember being on the show with both of you guys. I'm saying I don't think that VanVleet's that answer as the sixth guy. And he's certainly proved me wrong, was how calm he is. I just absolutely love his demeanor on the court more than anything. And I wonder how much that helps him when he gets on a roll.
You know, John, I'll tell you the other thing that stands out for me to piggyback on that comment, and I think it plays into what you're saying, is he just seems like he's in the game itself, in the moment, and not being scared by the moment or wowed by the moment, and realizing that no matter what I'm doing in terms of my scoring, think about the third quarter. That to me was maybe the moment of the game where you realized how calm he actually was, or how he wasn't being distracted by what was going on. It's late third quarter. You're up, I believe, 12, 14 points. He ends the quarter with a chase down, you can call it block steal, whatever you want, on Terrence Ross. Most guys, you would think, you got 46 in the game, you're dog tired, you're up double digits, you're just getting to the fourth quarter. You're not chasing a guy down, making a play like that late in the third quarter to end the frame. And he's right there making the defensive plays. His defense last night was almost as impressive as his 54, and his defense this year has been more impressive than the offense that he's seen. He's just, again, it's that demeanor, that leadership that he's exuding.
To bring up you reminded me of something that when you look at the numbers, when you look at the box score, it's 54 points, sure, 37 minutes.
Yeah.
It's 37. It's not 46 minutes. It's 37 minutes. And that, to me, that's an impressive number on both sides of the ball.
The overall efficiency, John, on both sides. Yeah. Eric cited that block, but you know, when he came back into the game in the fourth quarter with his 46, he didn't go and put his hands up and say, okay, come on, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. Kyle was handling it. He says, okay, Kyle will handle the ball. He understands this gives me a chance to move without the ball, and I'm not the center of attention. And he got 50 and 52 off plays where he didn't have the ball. Like they go into the offensive set and he says, oh, let me just kind of drift towards the basket. And I don't know who it was, Evan Fournier, whoever, wasn't even looking.
Yeah.
And Kyle looked like Tom Brady throwing it past the guy's ear hole, a helmet hole, who wasn't facing the ball. And Fred, like, you look at the play, he just kind of walks to the basket and the defense forgets about him and he gets a layup. And the next one, almost the same thing. Like, how can you forget about that guy? And then Fred not drawing attention to himself, not cutting to the basket and waving his arms like, hey, I'm open, I'm open.
Yeah.
That's him. That's him. And you know, you talk to coaches, the Raptor assistant coaches, and they tell you, this guy does not miss a beat. And just, you know, many of our viewers, listeners are inclined to watch the ball. Watch away from the ball. He's a terrific rebounder. He's in the passing lane. He leads, he's amongst the NBA leaders in deflections because he's always got his hands on the ball. He's small, but he's got his arms out, showing length, discouraging drives. The guy just does not miss a beat, and it speaks to being a 4-year player from a winning program, because everybody wants to draft the one and done, and the Raptors give them credit. They saw a guy who understands winning, regardless of his size or what school he played at, and they said, we'll take a chance on him.
Well, and he hadn't played well the last couple of games. I don't remember what the point totals were, but I don't remember what he got in the first game against Orlando earlier in the week. But after he came back from being out, he was cold for a couple of games. And I guess this just tells you everything you need to know about the NBA. You have good nights, you have hot nights,
Yeah.
and you don't. And Freddie had a hot night. And is there any reason to believe this will propel him to some next level of offensive success? Because we do see this every once in a while where a player goes off, not necessarily for 54, but 40 something. And then, you raise a Spockian eyebrow and you go, oh, okay. All of a sudden the guy figured it out. And then the next night he scores 8.
Well, and that's,
well, we'll find out Friday, right? Because he's going to go up against Kyrie Irving in his next game and the Brooklyn Nets. Now, that said, Brooklyn doesn't play any semblance of defense, so there's a chance to go off for 40 again, because the score is probably going to be about 135 to 132 or something, the way that Brooklyn plays. But that'll be a definite test of Bobcat in terms of, facing Kyrie and James Harden, Kevin Durant on Friday night. But, to me, and Jonesy, I don't know if you'd agree with this. We were talking about it last night, and I'm sure you guys have discussed it as well. The Raptors are, a possession, a play or two here or there from being a team that's at 500, a game above 500. Do people look differently at Fred VanVleet if the Raptors right now are sitting at, 11-10 instead of 9-12? Is Fred VanVleet getting that much more chatter, especially on the heels of the 54 for the potential all-star nod? Because you're hearing it from Kyle Lowry post-game last night, but you're not hearing his name mentioned around the league. And I think that's reflective of the record. It's like, okay, as John said, yeah, you put up 54 against Orlando. Orlando's been terrible this year. And it's not to take anything away from Fred, but I think you end up becoming a victim of your own record at times when you're on a team that's struggling.
I agree.
You're not maybe being recognized for your body of work.
well, last year when Kyle was out, Fred played like an all-star.
Yeah.
And Bobcat, I think he has figured it out. And if you don't see him go off, I think it's because the rest of the league understands how good he is too. He's not necessarily this 5th or 6th guy on the scouting report. He's right near the top with Pascal and Kyle and Fred. Those guys are near the top. And now, a kid like OG who isn't, he's starting to drift. People are starting to respect that too. So if he doesn't go off again, I don't think it's a statement on Fred. I think it's a statement on the defense is respecting him and saying, look, we need to give this guy a little bit more attention. And that in itself is hard to do because he handles the ball well. He's very smart. Playing with guys like Kyle and Pascal, he knows where his shots are coming from. So, he can be on their scouting report, but it can be still very difficult to stop him.
But Paul, don't you think that happened when he signed the contract? Don't you think that his league awareness occurred in the bubble? And even all the way back to the championship of his role in that. So this is now just not people taking note, is just people saying, okay, this is a continuation of his growth.
Absolutely, John. I mean, do I put him on the level of these, these great perimeter guys in the NBA that, as Bobcat says, one night they can have 8, 12, 15, and you go, not a great night, but you're not surprised when he hits 30 or 35. I mean, Kyrie Irving at 37, my last look at it last night when we were leaving the arena, and his team ends up winning. And a guy like James Harden or Kevin Durant, like, you're not holding him to 12 points. It doesn't happen. And I think a guy like Fred might be pushing that realm now, where he's going to have a game every night where it's 12, 15, 18, 20, and he's going to have an impact on the game.
Well, didn't he, a couple, 3 games ago, didn't he go something like 1 for 11 from 3?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, and he chastised himself and in the post game, saying, "Man, I got to be better. I got to pick it up because I know I'm better. Everybody, is expecting more of me, so I got to pick it up."
Well,
I've
last night-
read 4 stories this morning on the game and on him, and they all start the same way. 4 different writers. They all start the same way. Undrafted Freddy VanVleet. Undrafted Freddy VanVleet. It's got to be driving NBA owners nuts that a guy like this sifts through the 2 rounds of the draft. And isn't there some cognizant owner saying, how do we? I mean, it happens in every sport, but how do we miss somebody this impactful? And he had this guy was a star at Wichita State.
Mhm.
This guy wasn't a
Yeah.
half miler at the NCAA level. How does he fall through the cracks?
I got a theory on that, John. Go ahead, E. Go ahead.
I was going to say part of the story with Freddy as well, and it was mentioned that I can't remember who brought it up last night, Jonesy, when we were watching post game coverage. But part of Fred's story as well, John and Bob, is that as it became kind of clear on draft night that it looked like he certainly wasn't going to go in the first round, and then as we got deeper into the second round, word is that Fred sent out the word from his reps and from his agent, "Don't draft me. Forget it then. I want to be a free agent. I want to go out and prove all you. I'll come to your camps. I'll come to your workouts. I'll pick my own team then. I'll go with a team that actually wants to sign me then. Don't draft me." And that idea of the whole, his whole mantra of bet on yourself, that to me is a telling thing that, listen, I don't even want you now. You don't want me. I don't want you. I'm going to go pick my destination. I'm going to prove all you wrong. And that to me is the incredible part of the story that doesn't maybe get talked about as much.
No, and I don't want to diminish the significance of Fred being undrafted and proving himself and becoming a starter and arguably a star. But let's face it.
You don't think he's a star?
I think arguably a star.
No, so that means you have
arguably.
a doubt. That means you have a doubt.
Where's the bar? Like,
the bar was 2 years ago winning the NBA championship.
John. I agree, John. I Bobcat, I think the fact that he started every second half in the finals to guard Steph Curry, and you look at some of the guys that have struggled against him defensively. My thing is, John.
Well, that makes you a good player. Does that make you a star? I was about to say before John wouldn't shut up for a second there that it depends on what your definition of a star is. I mean, Fred VanVleet is a very good NBA player. But how many stars are there in the NBA? Are there 5 or are there 105? Because if there's 105, then Freddie's a star. I'll give you that.
Well,
5, he isn't.
With your definition, Bobcat, of a very good player, to me, that makes him a star. A very good player is a star, is a guy that their team depends on. And John, to your original question, when I saw him at Summer League for the Raptors and knowing what he did in the NCAA, I'm like, how does this guy go undrafted? Like I had it right from that time in Vegas that this guy's going to make a team. Toronto better hang on to him. He came into camp that first year. You could tell right away. He watched Kyle. He guarded Kyle. He's like, okay, who's the best player here? I'm going to show you how good I am compared to the measuring stick at my position. And John, some of the scouts, and this is something that he wasn't well liked, but Jerry Krause never let his scouts in Chicago hang around with other scouts because they get that herd mentality. What do you think, VanVleet? I like him, but he's too small. Yeah, he's kind of small. Geez, he'd have problem with the length in our game. And then the chatter spreads from one to the other, and pretty soon everybody says, yeah, he's good, but he's too small. And I give Toronto credit for saying, hey, we got a guy like that. If he turns into another guy like that, we're good. If he doesn't, all right, he's a free agent. It's not like we're spending all this big money on him. So I think
Jonesy, they've done that again, right? They've done it again with Malachi Flynn.
Yeah, and scouts are afraid, John, to step out of the box. It's the old adage: if you have the number 1 pick and you don't draft LeBron James, or you draft LeBron James, you might lose your job. if you don't draft him, you're definitely going to lose your job. And I
So-
know
so-
some guys have lost jobs.
So my point about the stardom is this: if you had to make a poster right now of who reflect what the Raptors are and how they play, this guy's on the poster.
Right.
This guy's on the poster. If I'm in the other 29 cities and I'm saying the Raptors are coming to town and I've got 2,000 empty seats, well, I got more than that right now, but if I have 2,000 empty seats to sell, I'm telling you that Lowry's coming to town. I'm telling you that Siakam's coming to town. And I'm telling you that Freddy VanVleet's coming to town. That's
he could have
why
had
he's a
more money.
star.
He could have had more money this summer. And I think at one point he joked in his news conference, kind of, yeah, well, I'm here. I guess it was okay. I got the money, and that there was more out there somewhere for him. But he also saw a chance to win here, a comfort level, somebody who gave him a chance. So it's, maybe there was a little bit of a hometown discount. We don't know.
Well, the only thing I want to point out is that for those that, for whatever reason, might not be aware, I mean, there's 60 players drafted in a year in the NBA. 60. There are hundreds drafted in the NHL, 1,000 drafted in Major League Baseball, hundreds drafted in the National Football League. So the qualification of a guy being undrafted and producing in another sport is pretty significant. It's less significant in the NBA. That's all I'm saying.
I think that's fair, but I'll tell you what, Bob. Bob, if you don't think he's one of the top 60 players in the NBA right now?
Oh, I didn't say that, John.
No,
I didn't say that.
No. But that's what scouts and managers have to figure out. Is he going to be one of the top 60 players at one point?
Well,
and is he worth protecting?
Look, and I'm not here to defend the scouts, and I subscribe to the theories that our guests have about the mentality of scouting. But let's be honest, Fred VanVleet is probably 5'10", and he did not come from he came from a very good team, but he did not come from what would be acknowledged as a big program. Didn't get as much attention. I have to be honest. I think I could have looked at that draft and said, I really like Fred VanVleet, but there's some things about him that I'm not so sure about. Maybe I'm going to go in a different direction that's a little safer. And maybe I try and get him as a free agent afterwards. So was it an injustice? I'm sure Fred thinks it was. And right now it looks like it was a big, big blunder by the NBA. But it happens,
Sure.
And
it does.
It happened with obvious reasons. Smaller school, smaller guy.
Yeah.
Although Wichita State that year was they were a great program. They were a great program. They were number one for multiple weeks that year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Understand. Take a look at the quality of competition.
Yeah, well, the mid-majors have become in college basketball now because all the one and dones are going to places like Duke and North Carolina and,
of course,
and all the big
Kentucky.
schools.
Don't forget Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky, they turn over their roster every year. But the mid-majors now, those are the dangerous teams, like a Wichita State or some of these, because
they actually have a few seniors and a few juniors.
Bingo Bobcat, bingo Bobcat, and people downplay. And again, scouts look at potential and they jump on the one and dones, but there's something to be said for a kid who's a little older, has played 4 years, has matured, and understands basketball. The NBA game is different from the college game. And you get a one and done coming in, that kid's 1 year removed from AAU ball. And now you're trying to jump 2 steps and teach him the pro game when he doesn't really understand the basic game itself.
With Smith and Jones, there's a bunch of things I want to get to. Let me throw a couple of points at you. Powell, when given the opportunity, rarely disappoints. Does sometimes, but rarely disappoints. I don't know how you play him as a starter. I don't know how you give him more minutes. But does he deserve it? E?
I'm in the same boat as you, Bob. And in fact, we talked about this recently. How do you get him in that starting lineup when everybody's healthy, when OG Anunoby's back? to me, the only possible way you can start
So
Norm
if you go
Powell.
small,
Well, yeah, and you have to play Siakam at the 5 then, essentially,
Yeah.
for what that's worth. I mean, we're kind of in positionless ball anyways, but if you start Siakam and Anunoby up front with Powell and obviously then Freddy and Kyle, problem then is you have zero in terms of offensive punch off your bench outside of, I guess, Terrence Davis and Chris Boucher. And the problem, even looking even bigger picture, Bob, and I'm a big Norm guy as a person, let alone as a player. You've invested a lot of money now in Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, and OG Anunoby with those contract extensions, and a deal is coming up real soon, or a new deal is coming up soon for Norm Powell, and I'm not sure how he's going to fit financially into the 3 you've already committed to and the wiggle room you hope to have and maybe need to have to continue to address the roster going forward into next year and beyond. So there's a tough decision coming regarding Norm, whether it's, yeah, we're committing and we're locking up and we're going with those are our 4 guys and our 4 horsemen, or we got to figure something out and either make a move or it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough. I mean, that's the one decision looming. Everybody's talking about Masai's deal and Kyle's deal and Giannis already signed now, so that's off the table, etc. But kind of, brewing below the surface is, oh yeah, by the way, that Norm Powell contract that many people thought was bad, that turned out to be an incredible deal. Well, the next one's coming up now, and you got a decision to make.
Aren't the Powell and the Lowry contracts kind of connected in many ways?
Potentially,
when you think
John. About it.
Yeah. I think so. Because if you're going to get something for guys who may not be here next year, you see where you are now. We always talk about it. If they leave, if they walk away and you get nothing for them, you keep them past the trade deadline and you make a run and you get nothing for them, at least you have money to spend. Right. Now, cap space can't rebound. Cap space can't block shots. It can't play defense. But you're also banking on your developmental track too. Look, Paul Watson is a guy I think who can really, really play. I like what I've seen from him. We haven't seen a lot, but his demeanor, he's long, he's athletic, he handles the ball. He seems like a very heady, astute, intelligent player. He's a guy that, you talk about what happens with Norm, you might have a guy just below the surface that you're developing that's ready to step in. Does that set you back a bit? Who knows? Because it might take him a while to, in terms of playing, learn the system, learn the league, and all of that. But he's got some potential back there. And look, if you're talking about draft picks and you trade those guys for, a decent contract and draft pick, you've already got a guy that you're working on. You've already got some potential in your franchise.
Well, it raises a whole whack of questions about the immediate future of this team and where they're at. I would say to you that I have no optimism that this team is a deep playoff team. I think this team right now is flawed. And which, there's a lot of teams that are flawed. The bar was raised 2 years ago and lowered only slightly last year. But I don't see this team being a contender for a championship this year. But I also don't know what the missing piece is or who that missing piece is. Now, Masai may be able to pull one out of his keister and surprise all of us. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, he's going to have to use one of the assets that he has, maybe the Norm Powell, as a piece of the puzzle to go and get that guy. But let me stop right there and ask you guys, is there anybody out there that we could speculate? And that's all we'd be doing, but could speculate might be a piece of the Raptor puzzle before the season is out.
In terms of a big name, Bobcat?
Well, a guy that would impact the team enough, Jones, to provide a level of optimism that they might be able to contend for a championship.
It would be difficult because of what you would have to give up. And Eric, what's your line about filling one hole and creating another?
Yeah,
that's something that you would have to consider. And they're kind of patching it together right now, Bobcat. They had a rough start. due to a lot of different things, but they've been playing a lot better in the last 15 games. And let's see where they end up. This next stretch, 9 out of 10 on the road against some really good teams. Let's see what happens after that, because we'll probably be halfway through the season.
Well, but Bob, on Monday you didn't have them making the playoffs. You think that's changed?
I don't know.
Playoffs are 10 teams now.
2 wins over Orlando to me mean nothing.
No,
and
no,
it's
I
not
understand.
it's not even Orlando. It's an Orlando team that's got what, 5, 6 guys missing. From a team that the Raptors have always owned, and a team that, you know, only surprised last year. They weren't good, they just surprised. So I don't put a lot of stock in a couple of wins over Orlando. And they were what, 7-12 before that. Well, that's not a playoff team.
Yeah.
And frankly, the only thing I've seen that's optimistic, I'm really intrigued by what our guests think about this. I like the comment by Siakam, who essentially said, you know, I've been shooting too many threes, I got to go to the basket more. Well, duh. No bleep, Sherlock. And I like the fact that Powell's been played. And I know you guys all love Anunoby, and I don't dislike Anunoby, but Anunoby rarely provides you with any offensive spark or impact. And they are almost void of any significant contribution at center. So there are the flaws, essentially, that surface for me. Can this team be, not just make the playoffs? Sure, they could squeak into the playoffs. Could you have any optimism going into the postseason with this roster the way it is right now? Because I don't have it.
As it stands right now, Bob, I mean, to be perfectly frank, I think anybody be naive to say on February, whatever the hell date it is, 3rd, 4th, whatever the heck the date is, that it's a 9-12 team with all the issues you just brought up is a championship contender. There's major improvement, definitely major improvement that needs to come with this team. My biggest concern right now, and this kind of speaks to the question you asked previously as well about what to address. I think there's a major concern at the center spot, but what I'm still trying to figure out is, what does that center spot mean in today's NBA?
Correct.
Can I get away with playing smaller? So then does that mean that even if it's not Norm Powell in the starting lineup, I could make a deal for a wing, and I could play OG at the 4 and Pascal at the 5, and that's just a number anyways, because I'm just rolling out 5 guys that in positionless ball, and I'm just playing that way. So does that impact then who I'm looking at, what I'm looking for? I don't need to necessarily replace Aaron Baines or Chris Boucher with a traditional 7-footer, a big, quote unquote. I can do whatever I want. I just need an impact player. Because the tough thing as well, and Jones, you and I went through some of the rosters and lists the other day. You start looking at some of the contracts of guys, like, let me just throw a name, and this is not a name that I'm saying Toronto should be interested in, but you start looking at teams that might be willing to or wanting to make a trade. Bottom teams right now, teams that are struggling. The Pistons stand out certainly as a team that needs some help. Well, Blake Griffin's a hell of a player, but he's also riddled by injuries of late, and I believe he's making in the neighborhood of roughly $35 million a year for the next couple of years. I don't think that's a guy that the Raptors are looking to take on right now, but I'm sure it's a guy that the Pistons would love to unload. Who's taken on that deal? The Timberwolves are terrible in the Western Conference and have been for about 20 years, but they just tried to retool last year, bringing in D'Angelo Russell to pair him with Karl Anthony Towns and another high draft pick this year. So you start looking, and I'm not sure that there are a lot of trade partners and dance partners. Kyle Lowry has been linked in the rumor mill that if he were to get dealt, would a team like the Clippers be a fit? That's the one void that maybe LA has, is a point guard and a leader like Kyle. Well, who on the Clippers do you want if you're the Raptors, if you even were even to even think about making a deal for Kyle Lowry? Because you got to now start matching salaries up to about $30 million roughly. I'm not sure that there are people on the Clippers roster that Toronto would want in terms of, yes, they're going to make a difference. So I think it's tough right now. When I look around, I'm not sure that I see the deal that's there that is going to drastically make this team that much better. So you're going to have to rely on the internal improvement right now and hope that at the 40-game mark, when you're basically just past the halfway point, that you are a team that can say, all right, we're realistically now a 6th seed, and we're looking to make noise, and we're looking to be that team that pesters one of the top 4 seeds in the first round, and then all bets are off. We get into the second round. Can we pull an upset? Can we somehow get our way to the conference finals? But yeah, sitting here at 9-12, it would be, it wouldn't be truthful to say they're a championship contender.
Brandon Beal.
Oh, Bradley Beal.
Bradley Beal?
What do you have to give up for him, John? I mean,
I don't know. We're just surmising here. I mean,
he says he doesn't want to leave Washington. That's what he says.
You would have to give up a ton for him. I'm sure they would. I mean, he's their franchise right now. They would want, first round picks for him. They would want, good young players. And I agree.
Well, you have to give up VanVleet, Siakam, or Anunoby. One of those three, plus a bunch of other stuff.
I would agree go with the internal development right now, the organic development. I think you're seeing some of that. Bobcat, watch him closely. I think you're seeing some more of that from OG Anunoby. He doesn't just stand in the corner anymore. He's working on that stuff. His offense is starting to come. It's not consistent every night, but it's starting to come. And if you are going to be an elite team, as much as we talk about positionless basketball, you need every key spot filled. Mm-hmm. When you think about the big contenders in the East, when you think about Philadelphia, they've got Joel Embiid. And you think about Brooklyn, as much as they don't play any defense, they do have a guy in DeAndre Jordan who can rebound and protect the rim. And if he had to, could cover a guy like Embiid. So if you're thinking about that championship level, you need to have all those positions filled. Why do you think the Lakers said, well, people may not want Marc Gasol, but we could plug him in for a few minutes? He started every game this year. We've got Anthony Davis, but this takes the load off him. The Clippers have a kid in Zubac. He's big. He can rebound a little bit. He can finish down there. You do need all those holes plugged if you're going to be a championship team. And if a team has a guy like that, they ain't giving him up without getting something back that they feel that's really going to help them.
Well, okay. This is kind of going in all kinds of different directions, but
surprise.
We all love Kyle Lowry. We respect Kyle Lowry. We understand he is essentially the leader on the floor of this team. But Kyle Lowry's a $30 million player who's 35 years old, give or take. You can't re-sign Kyle Lowry, not if you expect to keep VanVleet at 20 whatever million, Siakam at 30 million. Powell's coming up. Anunoby makes, I forget, 18. Is that 18. What he's at? Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Add him up. You got no room to do anything else. And you have a couple of young guards that you don't know enough about yet, but maybe can step in and help out. And you put this team from a point guard position on the shoulders of VanVleet, and I think we're comfortable that he can do that. But it leaves you in a situation where why would you wait until the end of the year and let Kyle Lowry walk away as a free agent rather than move him? Because he's an asset with the Clippers and with others where you could get something in return. The dilemma, of course, is matching contracts.
Well, and that's the money part of it, Bob. And what we don't know is in the boardroom, are they okay with going into the tax? Are they okay with all right, let's, because a lot of owners say this.
Not with 18,000 empty seats right now.
Right, John. A lot of owners say this. Oh yeah, I'll pay the tax if we're going to win. Really? And look at a guy that had deep pockets like Mark Cuban. They went for it. They win in 2011, and all of a sudden, that guy's not important. This isn't that important. And now they're fighting to get back in the playoffs 10 years later.
Mm-hmm. I think my biggest concern with this club, and it talks a little bit about Eric and the small ball, is that when you look at the box score again, Kyle Lowry is your leading rebounder. Hmm. I mean, that speaks to, Paul, what you were talking about with, you got to make sure there's somebody down underneath the hoop that can make a difference. And
the big guys don't play under the hoop anymore.
No, and that's
particularly on the defensive side. Somebody's got to grab the ball. I'm sorry. There's still some fundamentals in this game that still exist, and rebounding as well.
No, they don't, John. That's the problem. They don't exist anymore. The way we understand them and have grown up with the game. to figure out how it works. Jones, you want to say something?
No, it's changed a bit because with the positionless basketball, you're right. Your big guy is going to be outside sometimes. Kyle's just a guy who wants the ball, so he is a good inch for inch. He might be one of the best rebounders in the league.
Sure he is.
But the other part of that too is, John, to your point about the fundamentals. Big guys they might hang out in the perimeter, but when they go down inside, they don't shrink. Joel Embiid is a load down there, and when he decides to go on the block, if you don't have a Marc Gasol or a DeAndre Jordan or a Dwight Howard or somebody that can physically match the guy, you're in trouble.
That's kind of my point.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, just as we're talking too, and Jonesy, I can't remember if this is the team we discussed the other night or not, but you look at Cleveland, they got 3 guys there now. And again, I don't know if any of them are fit for Toronto or any other team in the league for that matter. You got Kevin Love, Andre Drummond, and Jarrett Allen. And they just dealt for Jarrett Allen. So you got to know that he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So there's another potential trade partner that's got 3 big bodies that all can rebound. And if you're looking for that, there's another potential trade partner. But, this and Bobcat and sort of divert a little bit too, is if, and again, I'm not sure that I'm trading Kyle Lowry, but if you go down the path of trading Lowry or Powell or anybody else for that matter, are you trading Kyle Lowry to the Washington Wizards, to the Cleveland, Cavaliers? Or are you sending him to a contender? Are you doing a franchise player dirty by sending him to a bottom feeder? Or do you have to get creative now and involve a third team? And now we're talking about trying to figure out all that ramifications of where guys are going so that you don't send him to a bottom feeder.
Oh, I know how to
You
fix
give him a
that,
chance
though.
to win.
That's
do you
an
fix
easy
that?
fix. First thing I could do is go to the player and say, are you prepared to take a 75% pay cut? And when the guy says no, which he inevitably will, I say, okay, then we're gonna send you to Washington. I mean, it's a simple analysis,
The loyalty that comes out of Bob's mouth every day is absolutely phenomenal, isn't it, boys? I mean, it is fantastic.
Well, you know what the bumper
mean
sticker on
any-
the back of his car says? If you want loyalty, buy a dog. Bobcat.
I mean, come
Hell,
on.
I don't know what's wrong
Bob.
with that. You guys are laughing.
Oh.
That's how life works. Loyalty doesn't mean
I think
shit
Kyle
anymore.
deserves to be. I think Kyle deserves to be treated better than that, Bob.
Bell just fired 210 or 220 people. How many of them were loyal to the company for all the years they worked there? And at the end of the day, they don't give a crap. They just blow their asses right out. And it's no different in any part of life.
All right. Hey, I got a couple of quick hitters. Can I ask a couple of quick hitters before we go?
I'll tell you when we're going to go, but go ahead and ask your quick hitters.
You've been checking your watch for 10 minutes. Wasn't Miami supposed to be better than this?
I don't have a watch.
Paul, wasn't Miami supposed to be better than this?
I think people figured they would be from getting to the conference finals, but John, I would
And the
say
NBA
this.
finals.
Yeah, the NBA finals. The bubble is very different, and I keep saying it. I'd love to know how Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, all these guys would have played in a hostile environment on the road. The bubble was like going to the gym around the corner or the playground around the corner every day. I'm not saying it was invalid, but it's very different. And again, they were the last team standing besides the Lakers. Shorter camp, not able to maybe get everybody back with the rest. They may come on, but I'm a little bit skeptical of what happened in the bubble.
All right. So on Monday, Bob and I started talking about Steve Nash, how Bob doesn't think he's going to be a good coach. You think
I
Steve
didn't
Nash,
say that.
You said that, Bob. Check the tape. You said
I
you
didn't
said
say
he
he wasn't
couldn't
going to be a
you
good
said
coach.
he can't manage. You said he can't manage Kyrie and
No one
and
can.
Durant and Harden. He couldn't. I think he's got to be given a chance, and I think he's going to be a good coach. Eric?
I think he's going to be a fine coach. I think he can manage those guys, but I don't know that with the personnel he has, and I'm talking players and coaches, the assistants beside him, I'm not convinced that he'll be able to turn that team into any semblance of a defensive-minded team. I think that they're going to be reliant on scoring 125 or more every single night and be just like the Phoenix Suns were with Nash and D'Antoni back in the day, and that's their defense, is just trying to outscore you every single night.
That's what Mike D'Antoni always said. People asked him about defense. He said, the best defensive team is the one that has the most points at the end of the game. So
And who's
they
it,
may,
and who's
they may
on
play
the
like
bench?
that.
Who's on the bench with Steve?
Oh, Mike D'Antoni. What do you know? What do you know? What do you know?
And the other, my final question, for both of you, is Utah this good?
Yes. Yes.
Why?
Because I think they play a style of ball that they have. Look at what we just talked about, all the traditional parts. They got a guy who can go, and Donovan Mitchell, who's a star. They've got good shooting. You know, guys
Got a
like
shot blocker and a
Bogdanovich.
rebounder in the middle.
They've got a big guy, Rudy Gobert, in the middle. They've got all the pieces, and Quinn Snyder can really coach. And they used the time in the bubble. They treated it like a training camp, you know, and they wanted to win then, but they had a crushing defeat after being up 3-1. And they usually take time to get going. I think they're really good. I think they are really, really good because of the way they play.
Well, effectively, a more well-balanced, for lack of a better term, more traditional kind of approach to basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what we all grew up with. And
Jerry Sloan would be proud.
I'm often chagrined by the way sports is conducted today and don't understand it entirely.
Hashtag get off my lawn. Old man, hashtag get off my lawn.
If I could see my lawn, I'd say get off it. But it's got snow on it. So I think it's still there, but I'm not 100% sure. Man, it's always fun. Thanks a lot for your time. We appreciate it. And make sure you change the pictures for the next show.
Yeah.
We'll
let me move to the other wing of my estate. Hold on.
We'll have a different topic. Eric Smith, Paul Jones, and John Shannon. It's the podcast. We'll see you on Friday. Goodbye, everybody.